here for a second or two. All right, now's as good a time as any. We're going to start our first show. Welcome to the Gig Econ Show. I'm Bill Davis.
I'm Zane Miller.
And I'm Callan Dunn.
All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. This is going to be our introductory show, so we don't have a guest per se, but we're going to go through, what we're going to be doing in the show, what you're going to be learning, what the format is, kind of possible topics, and we'll go from there. And we're going to take feedback. So, right now, because you're watching, you have a lot of leeway and a lot of leverage in saying, hey guys, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to see that, or I'd like to know more about this. So what we're going to try to do is take your feedback, take your suggestions, and incorporate them into the show. So what I'd like to do is start off with our introduction, which is our segment one, and I'll talk about the format first, and then we'll talk about how we're going to get into this. And Callan and Zane are going to chime in as well.
Sure.
We're going to, right now, the format is roughly 4 segments, and they're going to be 5 minutes for an intro, 5 to 10 minutes for an intro, and then we're going to have 2 content-based segments in the middle, each about 15 to 20 minutes long. And then we're going to have a close that's 5 to 10 minutes. So right now, this is our intro, and we're 2 minutes in, so we have 3 minutes to spare. And we're not going to, it's not hard and fast. It's going to be, we're going to flow through this thing, but the bulk of the content, the stuff, the reason you came here is going to be in those 2 middle segments that are 15 to 20 minutes each. So all told, this show should last 45 minutes to an hour. And we'll see how that goes. So you guys have anything to add on that?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and jump in, especially because Callan's our comment steerer, coordinator, person, whatever. As far as an intro, my name is Zane Miller. If you want to know more about where I started, you can check out the previous episode, our origin story. There's a little bit more there. But if you haven't, just a little bit about me without going deep into my roots. I jumped onto the YouTube marketing bandwagon when people were still like, wait, you want to use that website where people watch cat videos? And my favorite thing, because whenever I'd say, yeah, I'm going to do a YouTube thing, try and do marketing on that, they would say, oh, is it the thing where you watch this? You could always tell what people watched because they would be secretly telling you, this is what I watch on YouTube, because this was, before anybody even realized the true power of YouTube. I mean, there was even an episode on South Park. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? Where a view was compared to a hypothetical dollar. So throughout the entire episode of South Park, it was just like, oh yeah, I have $1 million hypothetical dollars, and they would just keep saying hypothetical dollars and so on and so forth. But then people started making money to the tune of like 6 and 7 figures, but not who you'd expect. One of my favorite ones was somebody was doing tutorials about making rainbow looms, and it was a 15-year-old kid who made so much money in the revenue share split that they were able to pay off their parents' house in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were doing videos about making rainbow looms. It was the weirdest side hustle thing that ever existed, and I still didn't get it. I was still one of those guys, like I had started YouTube, like if you look at YouTube now, and then if you started 10 years ago, I actually started with a video game channel, and then I buckled under the pressure of like, oh, okay, well that's nice, but how do you actually like make money with it? And so I sidestepped. I buckled under the pressure because I was like, oh right, yeah, who would watch video game videos? I'm laughing now, But somebody in 2008 would be like, yeah, dude, find a career. And then, but I kind of did. I found my own little niche because I was able to figure out how to actually get viewers to go from a video to a website. And that was actually pretty hard. Like if you were good at entertaining people, you could keep them on YouTube, but there wasn't the monetization platform. I mean, I was there before it was cool and it was still super lame. But I took all my time, and instead of trying to build my channel, I focused on creating a framework to get people to actually leverage YouTube and then help businesses and build their channels. So I didn't really ever have a channel of my own. I was all about being the executive producer, the guy behind the scenes, the person who was sort of steering the boat from the back of the boat that you never heard of, because I believe that it was somebody's job, at least in my mind. If you were going to help a business, you didn't sit there and start touting yourself the whole time. You said, okay, this is their thing, and that's what I focused on. But now, with the competition as high as it is, more and more people behind the scenes are required now that YouTube is the new TV. And nowadays there's even websites like TikTok and things like that that are like the new shiny thing that distracts you from YouTube. And it's the oh, well, we should check this thing out because YouTube's all old hat. No, it's not old hat. It's just been acclimated so much that it's now the new TV. Like they have won the war. YouTube is TV. That's it. But now it's time to start playing with things like TikTok and Roku and Amazon, all that other kind of stuff. If you guys want to know more about it, I'd be happy to. But I don't want to steal the show already. I just wanted to take some pressure off of Bill, because I know what it's like being the guy steering the boat and being like, okay, let's jump into this. And you're like, oh, what else do I talk about? So without taking too much time, that's me in my intro to give some perspective of where I sit in this. I'm not only just a host, but I'm also the guy who's like, all right, camera one, camera two, let's put this over here. So there you go. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Kellen,
Yeah. And again, we all went through kind of a more in-depth origin story on the last episode, kind of where we announced that this was going to be happening. But my name's Callan Don. I'm a Facebook ad specialist to help a lot of local businesses and small businesses learn to market online, primarily concentrated on bringing businesses that don't know how to market or aren't in the online space and bringing them into the 21st century. Getting them set up with their websites, copywriting, funnels, emails. Basically, it runs the gamut if it has to do with advertising, pretty much with the exception of YouTube, which is how me and Zane met. That's what I do. And then also kind of throughout the course of the show, I'll be monitoring comments and taking feedback from you guys and just kind of watching to make sure that as we continue to go and in these two get talking and in a flow, that we don't completely ignore you guys for no good reason. So I'll be talking with you guys in comments. So please feel free to just shout anything out that comes to mind. And if it's pertinent, I'll interrupt them and I'll make them listen to you.
Cool. And what Kellen said at the very beginning is something that you guys should take to heart. And that is, learn as much as you can, whatever you have an appetite for. But when you find gaps, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but when you find gaps in your knowledge or your tool set or your, information, expertise, skills, there are ways to fill the gaps, and there's always ways to fill the gaps with people. So if you don't have like YouTube ad skills and you think that you need them, you can either go do the training, or you can bring somebody on who already knows how to do all that stuff. It's really kind of one of those things that you have to weigh the benefits versus the costs, but you can always fill a gap with people. Like, for example, sometimes you want to automate stuff, but you can't, so you hire a VA, at a much lower hourly rate than it would cost you to do it. So just that's a little takeaway. So a little gem right there.
Well
all right,
so, nuggets early.
Yeah. So let's step into segment 2, and let's just talk about possible topics that we're going to cover in subsequent shows. and we might even touch on one here. And
I,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. You may have already been starting to say it, but we've already talked about it just a little bit. Hobbies into hustles, right? That just would seem like a cool way to put it. And I was like, well, I don't know if we can necessarily say we've coined it, but we're definitely going to start coining it, right?
Yeah. One of the things that market leaders do, and we're not market leaders yet, but we're going to be. One thing that market leaders do is they define their own lingo. So, I was pounding out the show agenda this afternoon to submit to the two guys here for their review and feedback, and I was writing things down and I'll just list them out: author, public domain, art, photography, blogging, ride sharing, domain flipping, consulting, salvage, repair and resell, e-commerce, email and affiliate marketing. And the thought came to my mind: turning hobbies into hustles. So one of the things that we all want to do or gives us some pleasure is our hobbies. And if we could turn our hobbies into hustles or into gigs, that's great, right? So yeah, Zane, thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's pretty good.
Well, there's just so much that's happening right now. There's so much of the gig economy, and these side hustles and things like that due to this pandemic. Again, if you check out the origin story or episode 0, whatever you want to call it, we talked about it quite a bit more. But as the YouTube guy, the video guy, I've always felt it was my responsibility. If I'm going to plant this flag and say I'm this guy, then there's a lot of other stuff that you do behind the scenes in the sense of, and there's a ton of analogies, but it's, when you see a picture of an iceberg, right, you only see a little tiny bit of it, and there's just a whole bunch more underneath. And I believe if you're going to be a marketer that plants a flag with a certain amount of technology, like YouTube, that's connected to video, which is connected to performing, which is connected to so much other stuff, you should be ready and have that deeper knowledge. So I've never watched YouTube in a passive way. I've always analyzed, I've always looked and studied. And you know what I've seen because of this pandemic? All of these hobbies are turning into hustles because of the nature of this pandemic beast. You see all of these professionals sort of, like they're trying to close off their personal lives and their hobbies and stuff like that to stay professional, right? But this is forced. The pandemic has forced their personal lives open to show these little side hustles and these hobbies and things like that. But that's sort of what happens all the time. We've all heard stories over and over again about how hobbies, it was this unassuming thing, and all of a sudden now they're the head of this major corporation that just started with this hobby. I think there are going to be so many inadvertent hustles created because people were sort of shoved into this, instead of like, well, I finally decided to step out and do it. No, we're going to see like 5-10 years from now, it's like, well, you remember that pandemic thing? This led to this, led to this, led to this. And almost by accident, hobbies are going to turn into hustles.
And I think it's really something that's worth noting. When I very first got into marketing, one of the things that I learned immediately was to specifically not wall off my personal life, to make it known what hobbies that I'm into. And, I may not tout religious or political views for very obvious reasons, but even that has some notoriety to it, right? You want to be prolific.
Yeah.
You don't want to be extreme, but you can't be neutral. So being neutral just kind of remains to a point where everybody ignores you, where you're prolific to the point where, whatever your hobbies are, I like to brew beer. I like to play video games. I build video games. Those are things that people can connect with me over beyond just the fact that I'm marketing a product and a service. They can get to me on a personal level as they begin to follow my journey through marketing, as well as these other things that are happening in my life. And it creates much tighter bonds with my community. And it's something that you can develop trust over as a marketer.
Speaking of which, why don't you? I think I see something right here on Callan's shirt there. Something that was a hobby that turned into a hustle, right?
It did.
This wasn't intentional. I saw the shirt and I was like, "Ooh, yay!" Yeah, I mean, I am familiar, but maybe you tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a website that I put together for people that like to brew or like to drink craft beer. And traditionally, brewing is a very lonely hobby, while drinking is a very social hobby. So I wanted to mix the two of them together and get people that love to brew to be able to brew in a way that's social, just like you would do it if you were drinking. So then we blend the two. So the people that drink can meet with the people that brew. They maybe learn how to do it from somebody who's doing it, where you learn to brew together, or two people that love to brew together, and they get together side by side with their equipment and make a batch of something, sometimes the same thing, maybe two different things, and they just do it, have some beer, and just enjoy themselves while they're doing it. It's a 4 to 6 hour experience when you brew a beer. So doing that alone can tend to just kind of be like, great, I'm doing this, it's fun, I love it. But I wish there were 3 or 4 other people, just have a good time. And it changes things when you get 4 guys around a brew pot, and everybody's kind of pitching in, just sort of doing things, and you can laugh and have a good time. And there's some time where you're literally just watching the thing boil, so you can work into it. And that worked into having the website set up to be able to have people that love craft beer meet for bottle shares and different things like that, where they can just discuss how things taste and what they like and what they don't like, maybe swap different rare things that they've been able to find that other people want to try. One of the great things about that community is a lot of people love to try different things and just kind of explore the flavors. So I figure we encourage that in addition to all of the social aspect of everything that's going on.
Cool. I like that. So you truly did turn a hobby into a hustle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fun, and if it's not fun, it's hard to sustain. So
because there's so much work. I mean, and that's something I think we need to make sure that we highlight and be right up front about, is that if you're going to turn a hobby into a hustle, it's going to be work. You're not just going to start having fun and then all of a sudden money rolls in out of nowhere. I mean, you might, but the chances of that happening are much smaller than needing to hustle and work and learn some new stuff, build it along the way.
Yeah, Zane and I were talking about that a week or two ago about, it all comes down to you got to do the work. Now, I know a lot of people, and I'm included, who are somewhat lazy. We work in bursts of energy, but most of the time we're not really doing a lot. But, this is always going, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to do the work. And maybe you don't have to do the work and you can outsource it, but I've never found that model to be like 100% sustainable.
Yeah, outsourcing has its own amount of work, right?
It does. You change from a doer, which you might be capable of doing, to a manager, and sometimes it just takes more time to get the ball rolling from a VA perspective, and it may take so much time that the project is over before you had trained somebody. So it's tough. But it's certainly a tool that you could put in your toolbox.
Well, in figuring out the things that you do want to outsource is a whole topic all in itself.
Yeah,
that could be an episode.
You don't want to be outsourcing really specialized skills that you have.
Right.
If you start working at as a hobby and you're reliant on those skills, and those skills are really part of your brand, and then you start outsourcing those to a VA, where did your brand go?
I watch that happen all the time.
either the work doesn't come out the quality that you would expect and like, and you're never going to have a VA that stays around because they're going to do work and you're going to complain and then they're going to leave, or you're going to fire them. And then you're going to keep repeating that cycle until you find somebody that has the skills you have. And then that's a dangerous game all in itself.
Right.
If you get these VAs that come on to work and they have all of the skills that are required to do what you're doing, and they say, man, this is kind of cool. This guy's or this girl is doing these things with these skills. I have all of these skills. See you later.
Yeah. What NPND? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. And I'm not saying that you should be afraid that people are going to steal your ideas, because there's enough ideas to go around, and the execution is really where the key is. You could have two of the same idea side by side and execute it differently, and one's going to succeed and one is not going to succeed.
Also well said. Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're outsourcing the important portions of your business, where the parts that are really building your brand identity, you're asking for trouble. You're almost begging for it.
Yeah, you don't want to outsource the stuff that's mission critical. You want to outsource. It's opportunity costs. Like, if you can trade doing a menial task with a VA in return for using that time that you now have back, to do something that actually generates revenue or builds your business or builds your brand or what have you, that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to outsource stuff that's like mission critical, or that doesn't return time to you so that you can get the really important stuff done.
And I think a really good way to put this, and probably the best way I've heard, it's not just the stuff in your business that you maybe consider outsourcing. It might be things in your personal life that you outsource to a VA so you can do business.
Yeah.
The best way I've heard it put is rich people don't mow their own lawn.
Right.
Because it costs them too much to mow their lawn. Yeah. If their time is worth $2,000 an hour, because that's what it's worth when they're out there prospecting and closing business, then if they were to spend $1,000 an hour on a VA, they're making profit by hiring the VA for $1,000.
Right.
Or if it's
that'd be one lucky lawn person. But
at the same time, it's not just the
point.
Yeah, it's also the same thing. This is something I've had to teach myself, is outsourcing those personal tasks as well, so that you can also take the time to, in a sense, recharge. Do the work that you need to do, so that you're not always working 24/7, but you should put the same amount of work effort into revitalizing yourself or getting things moving. You see what I'm saying? Like, I one of my favorite books, a book that I swear to, is called The 12-Week Year, and they talk about and it's time management to the core, and really it talks about, all right, so you're going to just put things into time blocks. So now, instead of just, you have free time, you're just doing things intentional. So you do things called breakout blocks. And this is X amount of time that's reserved to make sure my business keeps running. So instead of just going, well, I just do whatever, you're saying, no, I'm going to spend 3 hours recharging. I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. But it's all meant for one specific intentional purpose, to help you do better, so that when you go into the focus block, which is like, an hour of work, the breakout block, the previous 3 hours led up to that point. So you were ready, poised, and ready to go. And you weren't out mowing your lawn, right? You were focused on tasks that made sure that you could be focused and be at your peak when it was time to work.
Very good. Very good. Totally agree. I'm the poster boy for running himself into the ground after 5 plus. I wound up in the hospital quite a few years ago because I was just exhausted, and it led to health issues that you don't want to do that. You don't want to spend New Year's Eve in the hospital, and it wasn't because you were working too hard. All right, So I think we should jump into the next segment. We'll talk about what we were going to talk about in the last segment on a future show, because I think it's going to take a lot of time to talk through it, and I think it'll also give us some time to actually maybe build the start or the beginning of a case study for you to show you one side hustle, one thing you could do that will generate some money that doesn't take a lot of, doesn't take too much effort. So that's a little teaser for us, a future show. I want to talk real. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said dun dun dun.
I want to talk a little bit about the show's schedule. So as we start filling up time slots. So just to reiterate, the GigEcon show is every Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific. Hopefully it's come rain or shine, and whether we can all make it or not, the show's going to go on.
Show must go on.
As we're filling up time slots, we're gonna publish a calendar out on the website, which is gig-economics.com. We'll show you where that is
down below.
And what we can do is show you what's coming ahead. So it's kind of like your own personal TV listing for this show. So moving on, we went over this in the last episode, which was, as Zane said, episode 0. And it's how do you get started in the gig economy? And before you can even answer that, it's like, well, what is the gig economy? A lot of people don't know what it is. And some people have an idea of what it is. They think Uber and Lyft and, takeout taxi and, personal service type stuff. And it is those things and more. So it really is, when we talk about the gig economy, we're talking about a new way to work outside the world of the job. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but if you want to really, kind of discover some personal freedom, eventually our hope is that your hobby that turned into a hustle turns into a business. But you can keep your job and you could do your side hustle as a hobby, and that's cool too. But in any of these endeavors with respect to a gig economy, the idea is that you create your own work that fills a need, provides a solution, relieves some pain, or gives some pleasure. And that's kind of where you start. And subsequent to that, we have a saying that we stole, and we'll attribute that to the person who said it in a minute. But it's start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And that comes from an old tennis pro. He was very good. His name was Arthur Ashe. And what that really means to us is that you have skills and experiences, right? Everybody does. That when combined with passion, again, that hobby, you really like to do it, can guide you into small ventures that earn you money that you can then scale if you want to. That's the whole idea behind the gig economy, is it gives you freedom. And most of the freedom is time. But money also buys you freedom, in a sense. If you're having to work 2 part-time jobs that pay minimum wage, that's a lot more difficult than having a full-time job that pays minimum wage, along with a side hustle or a gig that is a hobby that gives you pleasure. Maybe it fulfills you, and you can help people, and you can get paid. So, anybody want to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in here because I got a couple of things. I'm gonna try and rapid fire this to save time and connect it all together. One of the I am as many people have put it, a serial entrepreneur. You can check more of that out in episode 0. But I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was, but basically from birth, it was in my genes, and I've always been about it. to the point you might as well call me a gigamaniac, right? So, but here's the point. I was always looking for the business, how business connected things. That's I think the major point that should be the deviate. You don't just look for like let's look for anything and everything. No. See where they connect. See how deep the iceberg goes. You don't. An iceberg isn't like this gigantic sprawled out thing. No, it's a big gigantic chunk, and it's under the water. It's deep and it's thick, right? So the advice that goes with this is, when you can see an opportunity, see where other opportunities naturally flow. I even actually did a video about this on our YouTube channel that you can check out, because you might be watching this on Facebook, you might be watching it on YouTube. But part of the thing that I do with my video marketing, online video nerd typeness, is taking what we do and making sure it permeates through most of the internet. So you might not even be watching this on Facebook. You might be watching this maybe on Roku or something like that. You never know. But my point is as I'm trying to steer through this, you want to find where things naturally connect, because that's where more of the money is made. And you want to think in business terms, because when I first got it started, it wasn't just me as a kid, and I wasn't some sort of business savant or anything like that. I had family members, aunts and uncles. I come from a very big family, so there was a whole bunch of